Harold, do you remember in the 70s there was a guy, Crazy Eddie, in New York?
Oh yeah. Syrian Jew, a Jewish guy.
Yeah. So I was reading the New York Times this week. They made a book about him in the book section. I want to get that book.
The Crazy Eddie Antar.
Yeah, Antar, right.
Eddie Antar, yeah.
Yeah, so
is he still alive?
I don't know if he's alive, but he was in jail. He was a real He's really a scammer. Right. He cheated people. He advertised. He used to sell so much stuff, but it was
bait
all
switch.
Return bait switch. It was return stuff damage, and he would cheat people. That's why he was still on. But that was an article this week's New York Times had. But I want to see if I get the book. Must be pretty interesting. He was really a real
you probably find that on Amazon.
Yeah, maybe so. But remember him? He was crazy.
He was nuts.
He was advertised out. Yeah, Crazy Eddie. Yeah, how the prices. He got the best prices in the country. Sure. And it was stolen.
What happened?
Stolen goods. Remember Crazy Eddie before your time when you were still probably in South Africa.
I know Crazy Eddie is. I know his family. What are you talking about? I know it.
You do?
Not the guy from here. There's the guy from New York.
Not the guy from not from here. The Crazy Eddie.
Yeah, I know the guy from here, but
the guy from here. The guy from here is an uncle of Sean.
Oh, really?
Sure. He's Johnny Sean's wife's mother's brother.
Yeah, that's the guy here. The one in New York was a crook. This guy's a straight guy.
Yeah. He used to advertise.
I found the book.
Yeah,
it's called Retail Gangster.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Retail Gangster. It's on Amazon.
Okay, I'll try to see if I get it. Yeah.
It's at $26 on Amazon.
Oh, I don't know if I wait till I come the paperback.
but wait, I can get it cheaper.
Oh.
Who wrote the book? He wrote the book?
He wrote the book. No, he
was in jail. He was all sorts of crazy stuff.
Oh, crazy! Yeah, he swindled people. He swindled the public. He built up about 30, 40 stores or something.
Oh, really? That many?
Yeah, and then he's in New York and the whole of the New York area. You couldn't buy it cheaper than you look at Crazy Eddie. He matched every price.
Yeah, because it was stolen or was a
Stolen.
return.
Yeah.
That's why.
Yeah, Syrian Jew, right? Syria, yeah, Crazy Eddie. Yeah. So I just have to thinking about it because not many guys heard of him before. I mean,
guys. He died in 2016.
Oh, is that what he did? Yeah.
Yeah.
Was he in jail or out of jail when
the
he
electronics store. That's a good question.
Oh, okay, well, whatever. He maybe they didn't put him in that long. There were worse guys than him,
Oh my God.
Isn't that something? But maybe a little way in history, My goodness. Yeah. Okay, Crazy Eddie. Yeah. All right. I wonder if Ernie remembers him. I don't think so.
I don't know if you would.
Yeah, because he wasn't, he already did learn on the East Coast. He learned here. I don't think he went to the East Coast, but
it's funny. There's a review here from the guy who was a CFO.
Oh, really?
And the guy said the book is very accurate.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah, so it's not made up stuff.
Not made up, yeah. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Should be interesting, though.
What are you talking about?
It's a book about Crazy Eddie, a guy from New York who had these electronic stores.
Yeah, I remember Crazy Eddie.
Yeah.
You remember him?
I remember the ads. I remember the store.
Yeah. Remember he used to be on the radio himself. He speaks with like a Brooklynese accent. Hey, right. Crazy Eddie, got us, the authentic Brooklynite. A little
John,
history.
John, did you fill out the online form? Are you going to be here for Rosh Hashanah?
For Hashanah, yes.
Did you fill out the online form?
Yes.
For the seats?
Yes.
There's a problem with it. You couldn't explain exactly what you wanted. You had to write down where you wanted your seat and stuff like that. No?
No, it showed you the days that you wanted it. Yeah. How many people you wanted to have. And then
I need different days for different seats. Maybe that's how they had to do it.
Or maybe that's got complicated. Yeah, that's already more complicated. Yeah. So you probably should have done a separate form for each yontif, I guess.
Maybe I should. That's a good idea.
Yeah.
Where are we holding?
We're holding Nun Aleph at the Mishnah, a little below the middle of the page.
The Gemara. We did the Mishnah.
The Gemara. I'm sorry, we did the Mishnah. Correct.
Mani.
The first of the white lines on Nun Aleph.
Oh, got it.
Who is the author of the Mishnah? Mani Rab Meirhi. The Omar kol apoiches lebsulo mimasayim ulalmana mimana areze bilaznus. Rab Meir says you cannot live with your wife if she was a basula for less than 200. If she's an almana, less than 100. It means that's the sum in the ksuba. Otherwise, it would be considered a bilaznus. The Rabbi Yehuda doesn't hold of that. And our Mishnah clearly said that even if you didn't write the sum of 200 or 100, it's considered a T'nai Bezdin. It's inherent. And our Mishnah cannot be Rabbi Yehuda. Di Rabbi Yehuda Amar, Ratza Koisev L'Bsula Shtar Shel Masai. If they wanted, he could write 200. Vihi Koseves, and she would write like a receipt. He's Kabalti Bimcha Mana. You only have to pay me 100. Or he can write a Lamana Mana. Vihi Koseves Kabalti Bimcha Chamishim Zuz. And he says that's okay. So that's different than Rab Meir. Rab Meir says if it's less than 200 or 100, it's not considered like you're married. So clearly, the Reisha part is Rab Meir. So now the Gemara is going to quote the Seifa. Aim a Seifa. Because of Lasada Shava Mana Tachas Masayim Zuz, in the Ksuba, on divorce or death, he has to pay her 200 zuz. And he documented a field which would be like the support to that 200. but the field was only worth 100. And he didn't write, all of my assets are liened to my debt to you. He's still chayiv. I mean, shoot Tnai Bezdin. One of the Tnai Bezdin is that you are meshubed. You are liened to the full 200, all of your assets, even if it wasn't written in the ksuba. Now we're back. Ason Rabbi Yehuda de Omer Achrayus to Soiferhu. Achrayus means a guarantee, means that the 200 is going to be guaranteed by his assets. And if you don't actually find it explicitly written, it's because the Soifer made a mistake. It's there. And it's not there because the Soifer, it's a Tov Soifer. And our Mishnah, which clearly stated that even if he wrote the field's only worth 100, and he didn't write the language, all my assets are meshubed to the ksuba, it's still meshubed. So this fits with the shita of Rabbi Yehuda. The Rab Meir, ha'omer achrayus lavto soiferhu, that if there is no achrayus written in a document, it's not a mistake. It purposely was written, and therefore the debt is not liened by any karka assets. Now, how do we know that Reb Meir holds that? This not. Motzei shitrei chov. A person finds on the street a shtar chov. It says Reuven owes Shimon $1,000. Im yesh ben achrayis nechasim. If in the language of that shtar that you found, it talks about that the loan is, there's a shibud on a piece of property, lo yachzir. There's a shtar that says Reuven loaned Shimon $1,000. So you might think I should go and return that shtar to Reuven. It's Reuven's shtar. He needs it to collect his debt. The din is don't return it. Because such a shtar, based in nifroin mehen. If Shimon, who borrowed the money and claims in the shtar that there's achrayus for it, means there's a guarantee, which means if Shimon doesn't have the cash, Reuven would be able to collect a piece of land worth $1,000. And even if Shimon had sold that piece of land, and when Reuven comes to Shimon, oh, I don't have that piece of land anymore, I sold it. If that sale occurred after the date that's written in the shtar, Reuven goes to the person that Shimon sold the field to and takes the field. He has a pre-existing lien. And the guy who bought the field from Shimon will have to take Shimon to court because he paid good money to Shimon. And now he legally lost the field because Reuven had a pre-existing lien. So there'll be like Walter asked yesterday, there will be a reckoning. The guy who paid the money to Shimon to buy that field will take Shimon to court. Now, if he doesn't have any assets, good luck. That's why you got to be very careful with title searches and, does the guy owe any money and all of that stuff. But for our purposes, lo yachzir, shebeis din nifroin mehen, a shtar that there's achrayus written in it, Beis Din will go and take it away from the guy that Shimon sold it to give it to Reuven. Now we're concerned about the following. Maybe the shtar was paid and Reuven gave the shtar to Shimon. Now Shimon should have destroyed it, but maybe he didn't. They're worried that they made a conspiracy. Reuven and Shimon made a conspiracy that they'll collect that piece of land that was taken away from Shimon based on this star. And maybe Shimon is in on it. So don't return it. Now, ain't ben achrayis nechasim? If there's no guarantee, then yachzir. She'ain bezin nifroy mehen. Bezin cannot take it away from Lekuchos that had purchased the field from Shimon. The Rab Meir. The Chachamim oimim echad zeh v'echad zeh lo yachzir. She'beis din nifroy mehen. The Chachamim say that whether achrayus is written or not, nobody loans money with a star without achrayus. So Rab Meir says if you don't write achrayus, it's not tohu sofer. You can write it with achrayus, you can write it without achrayus. The Chachamim don't hold of that. So clearly, the person who holds that it's not a tohu sofer is Rab Meir. And therefore the sefer has to be Rabbi Yehuda. Comes out Reisha Rab Meir and Sefer Rabbi Yehuda. So we can't have a split Mishnah. Rab Meir. Rishayla Rab Meir being Ksuva Lishtore. Maybe the whole Mishnah is Rab Meir, and Rab Meir is more lenient by Ksuba, because there it's a Tanai Bezdin. If it's not written there, we consider it's a Tol Sefer. But by other stars, no. However, the Gemara says, Rab Meir does not make a distinction between Ksuba and other stars. Vatanya, Chamisha Goivin Mina Mechororin. Mechororin are assets that are not karka. Metaltalin. The Elohim. And there's no shibud on metaltalin. You can't take these away if you sold it to a buyer. Payros. For example, if somebody has chus to eat payros from a certain piece of land, or shvach payros, or the profit from payros, and makabel lav lozan has ben ishto ben bas ishto, somebody who took on the responsibility of providing mizonos for his stepdaughter or stepson, you can only take from free and clear assets, not land. Shtar chov shein b'achrayis, it's only metatalin. Uksubas isha shein b'achrayis. Now, man shamislei, who is the one who says that Omer achrayis lav to sofer? It's Rab Meir. That if achrayis is not written in it, we don't just assume that it's a printer's mistake or a sofer's mistake. He purposely left it out. Uketani gam ksubas isha. So you try to say maybe Rab Meir will make a distinction between regular storos, where he'll say it's not a tohu sofer, by ksubas isha, where he'll say it is a tohu sofer. You see clearly, Rab Meir makes no such distinction. So Iboy same Rab Meir, Iboy same Rab Yehuda. I can explain our Mishnah according to Rab Meir completely, or according to Rab Yehuda. Iboy same Rab Yehuda Hasam, where we brought the Mishnah where it says he's kabalti, that the wife says, I'll accept less, I'll accept 100. In such a case, she had accepted that, but in a regular case, even though it's not written in there, we rely on Takonis Bezdin that there'll be a ksuba and it'll be for the full amount. Iboy Sam Rab Meir. And what do we mean chayiv? Where it says in the end of the Mishnah, he has to pay at least min ha-mechurorin. He's chayiv to pay from free and clear assets. Fine. He's not going to be meshubid with a piece of land. He can't take it away from the guy that Shimon sold it to. But he has all his free and clear assets that is leaned to the ksuba. Amar Avodah Shmuel. Eishes Yisrael Shenensa. We learned yesterday that a regular Yisrael, if his wife got raped after she was taken captive, he can live with her because only a Kohen cannot live with a Zona. However, the father Shmuel said, Asur lebala. We're concerned that, yeah, in the beginning she was forced, but by the time the rape continued, she went along. And a woman who commits adultery, beratzon, cannot go back to live with her husband. Ezra Rav Lavud Shmuel. So Rav asked from our Mishnah, Im tishtaboy, if you're taken prisoner by pirates, I will redeem you, and you'll come back and return to me as your wife. Well, what happened to this sheet of Avud Shmuel that it's Asur Labala, even by Yisrael? Ishtik. He didn't have an answer. You know what? Rav called the father Shmuel, sorry, he had an answer, but he's a great Sarah Torah, and he purposely didn't give an answer. He could have answered, Bishvuya Hekilu. If a woman is taken prisoner by pirates, so they were makel there, that he can go back, that there, we're not worried that she finished out the Ratzon. But a regular rape, we are worried about Ratzon. Now, the Lavud Shmuel, well, the Torah does say clearly that a woman raped can go back to her husband. We'll see where. What example does Avud Shmuel say that can occur? There were Eidim that heard her scream from the beginning of the rape to the end of the rape. So she never agreed to it. Now, this shita of Avud Shmuel we throw out. Upliga de Rava. Rava paskind kol shechlos abonav v'soperatz afilu hi omeres hanichulu shalmoli l'nizkak le'yishchar sarko means let me continue to have relations with him. I would have paid him to do so. Muteres. My timer yetzer al b'sha. You know, once a rape starts and then she's in the middle of that, a yetzer hara takes over. So even if she quote unquote is like agreeing to it, it's based on yetzer hara, and she's really she's not in her own power anymore, and it's all oinus. And we paskin this way, that an Eishes Yisrael is always permitted to baal. We're not worried about the sheet of Avud Shmuel that maybe by soifa it would be beratzo. The Rambam paskins like Rava. One of the reasons is because there's a baraisa supporting Rava. Tanya Kavasa de Rava. It says v'hilo nispasa. If she wasn't forced, asura. She can't go back and live with her husband. Hanispasa muteres. But if she was forced, she's permitted. However, there's another type of case where even if she wasn't forced, she's muter. Where in the initial event was against her will, but in the end it was with her will, she's still permitted. So the Gemara learns a drasha from a pasuk to support Rava. Tanidich, there's another brayso. V'hilo nispasa, she was not forced, asura. Hanispasa muteres. If she was forced, she's muter to go back to her husband. Asura, that even if she was forced, she's also to her husband, Veza, Zoeser's Kohen, like we've been learning. Kohen cannot live with a Zona, and therefore Nation's Kohen cannot go back no matter what. She wasn't forced. Asura, Hanispasa muteres. V'yesh lacher shav bishlo nispasa muteres Veza, Zusha Kiddusha Kiddushay Tos. The Kiddushin was done by mistake. And she lived with him, had children. Doesn't make a difference. She can now live with anybody else because the kiddushin was never chal. She can do miyun and walk away. I'm Ravida. Hani nashi de ganvi ganvi. There were women that Ganovim would steal them from their husbands. Shai and Leguvrayo, they're permitted to go back to their husbands. Amir Rabban Rav Yehuda Vakom Taminan Lunama. But they're bringing we see, even though they've been taken prisoner, they give the food to the Ganovim. Maybe they're living with them Baratzon. More says Machmas Yira. They're feeding them food because they're afraid. They send them presents or arrows. They provide arrows for them when they're fighting. Again, Machmas Yira. Now, now, if they throw them out, the Ganovim throw these women out, and then they follow them, so then, of course, they're usher to go back to their husband.
The Hirsch syndrome, right?
Patty Hearst, correct. Ton Rabbanon. Shvuye Malchus, the king would take women to have relations with them. Prima nocta, it was called during the feudal time. The duke had the rights of the first night. So that would be Shvuye Malchus. Harein Kishvuyin, it's like being taken prisoner. They can go back to their husbands. That's oinus, clearly. Genuve listis, einon Kishvuyin. Then if there were highway robbers, and here we're concerned, maybe the woman is interested in marrying them. They were very wealthy. So, Einan Kishvuyin. We learned the opposite. So, Malchus Loikash, Haba Malchus Achashverosh, Haba Malchus Beinet. Malchus Achashverosh, he was king of the whole world. There, the women know that it's only for Tashmish, it's only temporary for his lust. He's not going to marry her. She can go back to her husband. But Malchus ben Netzer was a little kingdom. So maybe the woman would think that eventually, maybe he would want to take her as a wife. So there, they cannot go back to their husbands. Listus alistus lokasha haba ben Netzer haba listim dalmo. Ben Netzer was a pretty big highway robber. So there, she again would not be able to go back to her husband because we're concerned she would want to marry him. But regular robbers, that's only a one-time thing, and she knows she's not going to marry them, and she would be able to go back to her husband. That you put Ben Netzer in both categories. You call them a melech, you call them a listim. Yeah. Gabi Achashverosh listimu. Gabi listim dalma melechu. He was big enough that compared to highway robbers, he's like a melech. Compared to Achashverosh, he was like a thief. Then Uve Kohenes, it says Adrinech limedina sech. In the ksuba of a Kohen, it says, I will return you to your city. Not to return to you, return to me as your wife, but I will return you because he can't marry her. And Almon is not allowed to marry Kohen Gadol. Let's say he married her. Bezdin's going to force a divorce. But until then, if she's taken prisoner, Chayv l'fadoiso. Shani Korebo v'chohenes adrinat l'mnisech. This would be an example where they would write in the ksuba, I will return you to your home. Okay.
Why does a woman have to write a receipt when he writes the ksuba. She doesn't get the money until either she divorces or she dies. Why did
That's
she have to
what-
write she right now?
She doesn't write it now. She writes it when she gets the money.
No, but it says she writes it right now. It said
That
you
was in
that.
a case where he wrote a ksuba, and then she responded in writing, you know what, I will accept 100. It's not a receipt. It's more like a negotiation. Maybe she thought that it would be more advantageous that she would get married to him. Maybe when he wrote the
Oh.
ksuba 200, but really he has in mind that he's not going to carry out the wedding. So maybe she writes to him, I'll accept less. It's not a receipt. It's more negotiation.
All right. So does it say what's the lotion they use there?
But his kabalti, I will accept from you 100.
I see. Okay. Not that I had received it. Okay.
Because the receipt we're going to see koisvin shoiver or loy koisvin shoiver. There's going to be a debate. When the husband pays out the ksuba, when he divorces her, do we demand do we write a receipt for him that he received, or when she receives the money, do we write a receipt and he gets it back? That way he would have to hold the receipt. So we have some opinions say, ain't koisvin shoiver. Why should we give another requirement to the husband? If he loses that receipt, she could try to collect a second time on the ksuba. So there'll be a debate whether koisvin shoiver or not.
The question is whether if he tries to squeeze her down, she's a psula to $100. It's a masna, and a masna is enough to get her out of the marriage without a get. That's one of the conditions of the ksuba, that she gets the 200. But if he gives her less, and then it's a masna. The Torah says stipulates 200. So that could be a consideration that she's it's not fulfilling the.
Well, that's the machlokas we had tonight between Rab Meir and Yehuda. Rab Meir says it can never be less than 200. Rab Yehuda accepts it being less than 200. He says it's okay if she's willing to accept it. The Torah never stipulated 200. It's the ksuba is a rabbinic document.
I see. Okay. Shkoyach, right.
Tomorrow, 8:00.
Good night.
Good night. Ugh. 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 Yeah. Oh, boy. Mhm. Yes.
Oh, could you get me, please, a popsicle? It's on the door of the big refrigerator, on the top shelf,
Get you what?
on the top shelf of the freezer.
Yeah.
The top shelf of the door is a popsicle. Could I have one? What's this one? Well, this one's bit, somebody bit me for it already.
Wow. Name a part of the body that contains cartilage. You said ear.
No, it's the knee. Knee,
So they said
nothing. That's a good answer then.
tree burn and slow down. I'm seeing all of everybody, and we will see you next time.